And we're joined now by a senator who is a member of the Joint Economic Committee. Senator Amy Klobuchar is also a member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, which has seen the devastating effect of the Trump tariffs on American farmers. And Senator Klobuchar is a Democratic candidate for president of the United States who hopes to be on the Democratic nominee who about a year from now will be preparing to debate Donald Trump. And if you are the Democratic nominee, it seems to me the tariffs will surely come up.
Well, I think we should be talking about it now, and I have...
Here's your chance. Everything you've wanted to say that you haven't been able to get into the debates.
I brought them up in my Labor Day speech because I think you know that we need to have trade enforcement, and I worked on this very hard during President Obama's administration when we came to iron ore and keep reopening our iron ore mines in Minnesota because of the steel dumping from China. We got it done because we went focused on that problem. Now what we see Donald Trump doing, he's using basically a meat cleaver. He is going wholesale to the point where you're starting to see the soybeans now for years mounting up in the bins. You see pork now at 9-year low for exports. You see what Austin was talking about there in terms of the effect it's going to have on consumers. And starting this week now, we're going to start to see these tariffs on ordinary consumer goods like clothing and shoes and things like that. So it's going to affect Americans, and it's going to start hurting our manufacturing. And I don't think it's a surprise that we're at $891 billion trade deficit, the worst that we've been at since he's been at the helm. And you look at the chaos. Instead of going to the negotiating table with our allies, figuring out our focus and getting this done with a very tough negotiating partner. What does he do? He goes, just look at the last month. August 1st, he says that he's going to put out $300 billion in tariffs. August 12th, they dial it back. The next, August 20th, they say they're going to lower taxes. The next day, they change it. The world is watching, and what they're seeing is chaos. And there's an old saying with trade negotiations, keep your promises and keep your threats. And he is doing neither. So I think it is an economic issue. He inherited an economy because of our great workers and businesses, and now he's blowing it up.
And this is entirely Donald Trump's personal doing. The tariffs are his idea. It's maybe the only idea he's had as president. And then the execution of it, he leaves to the USTR and others involved in it. But this is one of those things where he can't duck it. This is not any other, this is not something that the Senate voted on or that the Republican Congress helped him do. It's entirely his own.
Exactly. And when you look at what he came into, we have big challenges. We know what they are. China is one of them. They've been investing in places like Africa and around the world. And our goal should be to take them on, as Austin was pointing out, on the currency manipulation, which we are doing some of that, the subsidies they're doing with the industry, the stealing of intellectual property. And the best way you do that is with your allies. And if you're going to do tariffs, they should be focused tariffs. That's why in my first 100 days, I would review all these tariffs and figure out a negotiation that's going to work for our farmers, work for manufacturing, and stop something that to me just seems like a vanity crusade that he's on.
You represent a big agricultural state. Do you think that your ability to talk about this particular issue is going to be important in the general election?
It is. I don't know that every candidate has spent time sitting in farmhouses, and not just in the campaign year, but for years, and seeing that change where a farmer just bursts out in tears without the media there and the door closed saying, you know what, I might be getting these subsidies right now, but that's not what I want. This is a farm that's been passed on to me from generations, and I want to pass it on to my kids. And I don't know.
Farmers who are getting a subsidy that makes them whole, that is equal to what they'd be getting if they were in the marketplace?
Certainly not equal to what they need to keep contracts. The problem is, as this goes on and on and on, these contracts are going to farmers in other countries, and it's going to be very hard for them to take it back. And that's why we need a policy. And I think, we know we didn't get some of these votes right in 2016. I did in 2018. But we need to gain the trust of these farmers and bring them back, as well as the rural America and the people that are being hurt by this trade war.
Can you stay with us? Because I want to get your reaction to an interview that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell gave today, in which, among other things, he complains a lot about being called Moscow Mitch. After a commercial break?
Okay.
We'll be right back with Senator Klobuchar.
You're watching MSNBC International.
This is Milton, and Milton's been out here, and he's been standing in front of this police line only a foot or two away. The thing that caught my attention was you've been walking by hugging people.
Yes. All I ask is just for peace. Like Bob Marley said, one love. That's why I'm out here. I'm out here showing love and letting these guys and these men and women know that we support them, just like our military. We support our military. It's just as simple as that. I'll stand out here. These are my brothers and sisters.
Wherever forces clash.
We've been hearing incoming rounds have been whistling past.
Wherever leaders assert their power.
The easy part is over. Now the hard part begins.
Wherever crowds gather to celebrate.
The US of A is well represented here.
Or voices shout to be heard.
There has been a steady consistency of protesters here.
Our journalists will be there.
Here off the coast of Japan, the U.S. 7th Fleet is part of the front line of defense.
Bringing the world into focus.
Why? Because I love the magic of politics. When the stars align against the odds. When a leader somehow happens. I love the sheer human spirit of the maverick, the pro, the hero. You can have the one-note wonders, the flip-floppers, the hacks. Give me the gutsy, the grown-ups, the honest. Give me the ones with fire in their bellies, the ones who tell you why they're there. Those I can take and cheer nonstop.
It's not about cutting taxes, it's about reforming the system.
Right.
That's not what we're going to get.
No, this isn't tax reform. This is just a tax thing. Last summer in New York at the Economic Club, Donald Trump said that his tax plans are going to cause the economy to grow 4, 5, or 6%. I have a better chance of growing a full, thick afro than we have of getting to 4, 5, or 6%. So we just have to accept this is what it is. It's a deficit-financed tax cut. End of story.
On behalf of 8.5 million New Yorkers, when Morning Joe premiered on MSNBC in 2007, it raised our country's daily news and talk show landscape to new heights of excellence.
Wow.
Therefore, I, Bill de Blasio, Mayor of the City of New York, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, September 19th, 2017 in the City of New York as Morning Joe Day.
Tomorrow's headlines before they go to print.
What would your lead be about this event at the White House?
Tomorrow's questions before anyone's asked them.
How far is this from normal?
Tomorrow's conversation tonight.
As you delicately put it, this is a president that plays whack-a-mole rather than chess.
I don't think there was any strategy here.
The 11th hour with Brian Williams. More than the day that was, it's the day that will be.
It is never boring around here.
The 11th hour, weeknights on MSNBC.
Rule number 10, Section 2A states, a player shall not run with the ball without dribbling it. That's the rule. But what about our politics? Are there any rules anymore? And if so, will anybody play by them? These days, politics could use a little refereeing. And we're not afraid to blow the whistle.
When the facts are hidden in the shadows, and every lead takes you further down a winding trail, but closer to the truth. That's when the stories you unearth can shake the world.
Tonight, thanks to an NBC News exclusive report.
This is exclusive to us.
Let's start with the story you helped to break here.
After a Labor Day weekend, which saw another mass murder in Texas that killed 7 and wounded 25 with an assault rifle, when Mitch McConnell was asked today about gun safety legislation, he created a new operating principle for the United States Senate. This is the latest of many new McConnell rules that he has introduced as majority leader that stifle democracy.
We're in a discussion about what to do on the gun issue in the wake of these horrendous shootings. I said several weeks ago that if the president took a position on a bill so that we knew we would actually be making a law and not just having serial votes, I'd be happy to put it on the floor.
If the Senate could only debate bills that are guaranteed to pass and become a law, be signed by the president, then here's a small sample of things that would never have become the law of the land. Social Security, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and many, many more. Back with us is presidential candidate, Senator Amy Klobuchar. So how about the new McConnell rule? We have to be guaranteed that this will become a law.
Literally, he is giving up the power of the Senate, and not only as a counterbalance, but as you know, the Senate sometimes has passed bills, including some farm bills, where then the president vetoes and we override the veto. So you have that situation. And on a topic like this, where the country is crying out for action, where a recent poll showed the majority of Trump voters want to see universal background checks, which is one of the 3 bills sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk, where we saw the ordinary courage of these people that just rose to the occasion, saved their babies, cops showing up in 1 minute in Dayton. You think of what has happened in this country in just the last few weeks. And for him to say, well, I don't know what the president wants to do. We should put those bills up for a vote. We should pass them. And because I sat across the table from Donald Trump after Parkland, and he 9 times said, I had some hash marks on a piece of paper, that he wanted to pass a universal background check, let him veto it then. He said he wants to do it.
The Washington Post, in an editorial that will appear tomorrow, has a list of names of mass murder victims, and it's addressed specifically to Mitch McConnell. There we see it on the screen. Do something, Mr. McConnell. The Senate must act on guns. So the Washington Post is focusing the pressure on Mitch McConnell.
Exactly. He puts those bills up. I just challenge my Republican colleagues to vote them down. They have already passed the House with some Republican support. So there is absolutely no reason he can't put them up and then put them on Donald Trump's desk. That's leadership.
In that same interview today, let's listen to what he said about Moscow Mitch.
It's an effort to smear me. I can laugh about things like the Grim Reaper, but calling me Moscow Mitch is over the top. I mean, it's modern day McCarthyism.
So he'd rather be called the Grim Reaper?
I don't know. I think the problem here is actually my legislation, my bill with Senator Langford that Mitch McConnell stopped. We know that, as did President Trump's White House, stopped it from advancing for backup paper ballots. That's what caused, I think, Joe Scarborough and others to
call him Moscow Mitch.
That's exactly what happened. It was that bill, and also some of the other bills for social media and things that we could do.
And just Senator Langford is a Republican senator. You had a Republican co-sponsor on this.
We did, and we now have several versions of that bill that would simply say to those states, there's still 11 states that don't have full backup paper ballots. If you're going to get federal funding, you've got to do this. It pushes them to do it and also requires, allows for audits. And it's unbelievable to me.
What he doesn't seem to understand about McCarthyism is Joe McCarthy was accusing a lot of people falsely of doing things they did not do. Joe Scarborough was accusing him, as Moscow Mitch, of doing what he said he was doing publicly. There's a pretty big difference there.
It was very public, and he does not want to see these changes. And we really look at this. This is about our democracy. It's a foreign power trying to invade our democracy. I don't care if you are a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat. It is not American to allow that to continue. You should do everything to protect the sanctity of our elections, and he knows that. He just doesn't want to do it.
I want to ask you about something we were discussing just before the show when you told me you were on the Rare Disease Caucus.
I'm actually the co-chair.
Yeah, which I didn't know even existed in the Senate. Isabel Bueso, who Rachel has been doing great coverage on, we've been talking about her on this show, really trying to save her life, trying to get her story told. The New York Times broke the story, trying to get it to the attention of someone in the Trump administration who could see this for what it is. Apparently that has happened. The Trump administration appears to be in the process of reversing their death sentence to Isabel and all of the other patients in this country who have been getting automatic 2-year renewals of their right to stay here for life-saving medical treatment.
What this is about, it's about these kids, of course, and saving their lives, but it's more than that. It's about saving the lives of Americans as well. Because with rare diseases, especially with children, you'll have such small number of kids that have rare diseases. And to do the necessary tests for drugs or for surgeries or for trials, you have to have the children to do those trials. And sometimes they live in countries where you're not going to be able to have a supervised medical trial in those places. Minnesota is the home of the Mayo Clinic. So I've been involved in a lot of these cases. And you just can't do this. This is not America to send a sick kid off to die. We know that. But we also should think about what this means for us as really a medical mecca. Our country has been a lead. We've relied, the whole world has relied on vaccines that have been developed here, and we've relied on vaccines that have been developed in other countries. So this is something that is a world problem that we cannot be as successful of saving kids' lives that are born in America and grow up here, unless we also are saving the lives of kids in other countries.
Now, you had this struggle in your own family with your own daughter with a rare disease, and so it seems like someone in the Trump administration, whoever did this, they didn't have any public comment on it. They just made this decision. They sent out these letters to people, possibly not even realizing that these were death sentences.
I have no idea. And when you've had, and my daughter, she was very sick when she was born. She couldn't swallow. We never actually quite figured out. And over time, she got better after being fed in tubes for 2 years. And
but you
when you
searched
have
the country
gone
for
through
specialists.
this, the thought that as a president you would just sign this off and saying these kids can leave, when you have seen, as I have in those intensive cares, these parents who are just holding on to keep their babies alive, this is not what you do as a moral leader. And so one of the things that my focus for running for president is we need to have a president that you can watch on TV and not turn the volume on. We need to have a president that makes decisions based on what is right for our country and the people of this country and for the morality of this country that we've always been so proud of. We need to have a president we can be proud of. And at its very core, I think that's a lot what this campaign in 2020 is going to be about.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.